Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tune Under podcast, Newcastle. We're going back to Wembley.
Yes.
The thoughts,
Get in.
unbelievable. After all of the anxiety and all of the nerves leading up into this game, we never had anything to worry about. I'm Jack in Brisbane. Lee, also in Brisbane, is here to talk to us about this game, which finished around 12 hours ago. I'm guessing, Lee, that not that much work has gone on today in your household or workplace.
Just in case they're watching, I've done all the work, did all the work, but I've spent a large part of today trawling through all the Arsenal reviews, as I always do, Arsenal TV stuff and troops and all that kind of stuff, and getting my little kick after a big win like that.
I'm sure they've took it well, have they? They usually do.
You know, they actually did take it pretty well, in fairness. There wasn't much else they could really say. There wasn't any dodgy referee decisions they could hang their hat on or anything like that. So they just had to basically accept that we were better, which is nice to hear, because we were.
Yeah, we absolutely were. But it's very unusual for Arsenal to just take a defeat. It's very unusual for Arsenal to lose a game. They've only lost 4 domestic games this season in 90 minutes. 3 of them have been to us. The other one was a league game, and I don't know who it was against, but we've got a 5-0 aggregate score over Arsenal this season.
Yeah,
we do have to play them one more time, which is our last away game of the season, I think it is. So we'll see if anything big's riding on that. But we've got them well and truly rattled, and we're going to talk a little bit later about that and about the way that their players and their manager have behaved and sort of basically just fallen to bits over the game today and previously. It's been absolutely magnificent to witness. What were your main feelings and emotions and thoughts at, what was it, 7 o'clock? No, it was about 8 o'clock this morning when the game finished, as well as excitement and, how long did it take you to calm down and start reflecting on what had happened?
I mean, to be honest, the game was kind of sewn up long before then, wasn't it? It was clear that even when we scored the second goal on the 50-odd minute, whatever it was, that I couldn't see Arsenal scoring 4 just to draw level, and they'd have to score another one to win in the space of 30 minutes, not even 40 minutes, not even we could stuff that up so bad if we were playing shit. But the way we were playing today, it was like, and can I just say, by the way, that I absolutely nailed the preview. As I said, we can't just sit back and soak it all up and stuff. I mean, if you ignore the fact that that's mostly what we did, I absolutely nailed that preview. No, it was a lot more comfortable than. I mean, there was 1 or 2 moments where your heart was in your mouth, as there is in every single game. But on the whole, with that 5 at the back and 3 giants in the middle, and Trippier, who was unbelievable in this game, it never really felt seriously like we were ever going to lose. So when the final whistle comes around, it's just a punch in the air and a jump on the Arsenal reaction videos and see what they're saying, basically. For me, loved it.
That time of the morning for me is like peak, of 2 kids, trying to get them ready, give them breakfast, get them out of the house at different times. But the timing was like 6 o'clock it kicked off. That's when they wake up. So I had my computer and I was watching it, and I was trying to do breakfast and things at the same time. And I was like, I could tell that it wasn't, it was a nerve-wracking game because, it was a semi-final. But you're right. By the time we scored the second goal, we weren't going to lose that game. So even though it was Newcastle, we're not going to throw away a 4-0 lead with 35 minutes to go. So it was a bit like, it's kind of like it's done, and we could kind of enjoy the end of the game in the last sort of 10 minutes when they were getting more and more frustrated and they were building up. Some of the players were just seething and we were just enjoying getting stuck into them and getting in the faces. We're going to talk about some of our individual performances later as well, because there were some really
giants,
special ones.
Oh
yeah, everybody was massive. Everybody was phenomenal today, but there was a couple that we will pick out later. You've already talked about the formation. So when you were doing the preview and when we were talking in the run-up to this game, we were talking about whether it might be Botman or Schär who plays. We talked about Pope or Dubravka as well. In the event, it was both with Botman and Schär and Burns. So it was a back 5, and it was sort of like a 5-3-2 because we had the 3 centre backs, Lewis, Hall, and Trippier were sort of wing backs, and then sort of Hall was sometimes in midfield in a 3, and then Anthony Gordon was up front, and he was kind of like a little bit narrower than he usually is. And I was listening to his interview before, and he said that that's what he was doing, and Murphy was obviously playing as well. So it was a 5-3-2, but it wasn't defensive. And after the game at Arsenal, where we were 2-0 up and we went into a 5-5-0 formation, and we just invited all the pressure, which was very nerve-wracking. So even though we had 5 defenders, because of the way we played, because we were so front foot and so aggressive, and I don't really think you can say it's a 3 at the back when you've got Fabian Schär pressing on their box, you did for the second goal.
Insanity.
So when you saw the team selection, were you a bit worried about that we were going to basically be doing a low block and try and just shit house away to a 0-0?
Yeah, very much. And I think probably most people would have as well when they saw 5 at the back, because we don't typically play a 5 at the back. And when I was doing the preview, to be serious about it, when I was doing that preview, I was thinking if it's something like a 5-5-0, I knew it wouldn't be from the start. But like if we played like a 5-5-0 with a very low block, that was going to give me the arse for the whole game. The fact that we set up 5-4-1 and we really actively tried to push up the pitch and defend more like on the halfway line, and sometimes even in their half, and then for the second goal basically in the box. That was the kind of thing I was trying to say. We can't just sit back and let this come at us. We've got to give them a goal threat. If you just let them come at you over and over again, eventually the goal's going to happen. It's just the probabilities probably state that sometime if you keep letting these things come into the box, sooner or later one of them's going to end up in the back of the net, and especially if that's the first goal, you're in trouble. The fact that we were actively looking to break, and it was mostly a counter-attacking sort of tactic, the fact that we were doing that with such effectiveness. The first half was probably where we were at our most free and most lethal. And then we kind of sat back a little bit, second half of the first half, and probably into the second half a little bit. And then again, we started to press and push them back, and then we got the second goal. And then again, it's mostly kind of sitting back a bit. And because the job's basically done, you don't need to run yourself into the ground at this point. So nervous when I saw the 5-4-1. I thought, please don't be this, highly defensive low block. But as it turns out, I shouldn't have been worried, because 3 games we've played these guys so far, they've never scored once against us. Excuse me. And I think Eddie Howe's just got these guys figured out. You could probably play them like 10 times in a season and probably win every single one of them. I just don't think when we talk about teams that have bogey teams, Bournemouth is probably one of ours, 1 or 2 others. We're the bogey team for the likes of Spurs, and honestly, I think you can put Arsenal in that category now as well. I shouldn't have been worried. I also think a lot of it was down to the fans, the build-up, the saxophone on the halfway line. Just before the start of the game, everybody was up for it. The atmosphere was sensational, and that has to go into the blood of the players. And I think that lifted them and set the scene. And so, for all those reasons, it turned out to be a lot better than 5-4-1 on paper.
I think the atmosphere helps the pressing, doesn't it, in a way? And sometimes you think, could they get too into it and too carried away? But it was a bit like that PSG game. The PSG game where everyone was just in alignment, and the atmosphere, the passion, and the play. And there was a point today in the first half where I think it went out for a throw in, and it was Bruno or Tonali was celebrating, and that was still, I think that might be not 1-0, but it was throwback to that PSG game. And it's all very well to say, why can't we do this all the time? I saw a few comments today about why can't we do it, but you can't get up like this for a 12:30 against Bournemouth or a 3 o'clock against Fulham. Like it's Arsenal, it's a semi-final, and the crowd did their bit today, and everything was just perfect in the build-up to it, and the players responded to that, and the system we played, and it was the mentality that impressed me, because we have wilted on occasions like this before. Last time we were in the cup final, we didn't really show up, and I think we let the occasion get to us. But this time we didn't, did we? We managed to harness it, and everybody managed to stay aggressive and strong, but not. But they stayed on the right side of the line where everyone was still in control, and you never felt like we were out of control of this game at any point. And I think that was the mentality that had been drilled into them through the week. They didn't need to know how important it was, but but they just got it right, didn't they? The balance of everything and the psychology of this game was spot on.
Absolutely perfect. And this is why I referenced Trippier, because he was an absolute giant of a man, and he's obviously the shortest person on the pitch, probably alongside Hall. And he epitomized the entire mentality of that team from the start to the finish. He was not only, playing nice football and whatnot, but his attitude is getting in the face of Arsenal, because we know Arsenal don't like it up them. They never have done, and they never probably ever will, unless they change their ways significantly. And Trippier he's in there, he's winding them up a little bit. He's not backing down. He was probably the best defender at times during this game when the ball was coming in from a set piece. It was Trippier who was heading them away. And it's like, this is the kind of captain that you need, albeit he hasn't got the armband, but this is the kind of captain that you need to lead the team on the pitch. As much as Bruno has the armband and everyone says he's a great captain and stuff, I don't know that Bruno does an awful lot of actual captaining, of positioning the players, talking to the guys, making sure that they are where they should be. Trippier does that all the time, and I think he led from the back there. And I think it also helps that we had that early goal that was ruled off, because that gets everyone thinking, right, we're on this here. And it was a lovely goal as well. That finish from Isak was unbelievable, and it deserved to stand for just the quality of it. But that gets you up. That thinks, right, we're actually in this. We are intended on actually scoring goals here. We're not just going to sit back and let them come at us. We are actually going to try and give them something to worry about. And then Odegaard misses. A sitter, absolute sitter. I mean, you probably would have been better off just leaving it and taking a free kick inside the D, because that's dangerous, very dangerous territory. But he misses, and we go up the other end and score. And it's set up. It just set up perfectly for us. The mentality was there. The way things panned out in those first, whatever it was, but when we first scored, 15 minutes, whatever it was, and we just fed off that atmosphere and took that into the rest of the game. Amazing.
Even sometimes when you score a goal and you get a big disappointment, like, it was so narrow. And we've talked about these kind of offsides before, where if you have the daylight rule, I think, and I've said this when goals like this have been scored against us and ruled out, I think it should favour the attacker, because you're not really getting an advantage by your elbow being in front of their knee or something, So anyway,
it's a nonsense.
The attitude to not get too down by that and to keep sticking to the plan and doing what we were doing. I wanted to talk about Kieran Trippier. You've already covered a lot of what I was going to say, but even when he's not on the pitch, you can see him on the sidelines and he's geeing people up, but he's like giving advice to the subs when he's to the players when he's on the bench. And it was a throwback to, I remember the Everton game it was 3 seasons ago now, where he scored his first goal for us and we beat Everton in that massive game. And I've never seen a right back control a game in that way. And especially for him to come in for this game where he's been out of the team. He's 34, he's been linked with moves to Turkey. He's been, he could have gone at any time in the last 18 months, really. And he's had a pretty hard time in his personal life and all that sort of stuff. And to come out with a performance like that, you could tell in the first few minutes when he was up the right wing with Murphy and he knocked Havertz over, and Havertz was like complaining at him, and he was just like in his face. And
whatever, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, and he did it again later on, and he was doing it all game. He was just so fired up for it, and he's just a natural leader, isn't he? He's 5'6", whatever, but he's a leader of men. He's an absolute amazing leader character, and he's just a person that everybody looks up to, isn't he? And today was his best performance for us. It was an absolute all-time performance.
I mean, Eddie Howe must just love it every time he sees him somewhere near the training ground, and then especially on match day, because he just knows that he's going to be his voice on the pitch, because he's obviously at that age now. He's in the twilight of his career. He's seen a lot. He's done a lot. Internationals, European football, all the rest of it. I mean, you can see him being a manager at some point, can't you? When he retires, if he wants it, you can see him being that kind of personality because he, as you say, even on the line when he's just warming up, he's not even in the bloody game. He's pointing people to where they should be. He's waving them backwards. He's doing all the things that, the likes of Tyndall does halfway up the pitch, but he's down there alongside the opposition box, and he's like, and I think starting him was probably the biggest masterstroke of this whole setup from Eddie. He drops Tino, and Tino probably just needs a rest, to be quite honest with you. But, you look at the likes of Tino versus Trippier. Tino's got more of the forward attacking mentality. He's got more pace. but he hasn't got the intelligence and the positional awareness that Trippier has. And Trippier's got that just because he's done his dues, and Tino's just getting started. But the on-field general thing, I think, was the biggest stroke of genius from Eddie to play that in and bring Trippier into this game. You could easily say that, if it hadn't gone well for Trippier, the excuse was right there. He hasn't played.
Yeah.
He hasn't played. He's not up to match speed. That was the excuse if it hadn't gone right. But I don't think he lost the ball once. He was immense at the back. And people say, we should cash in on him, sell him to Everton, sell him abroad to Galatasaray, whoever was after him. You look at that game, that's what you're going to lose as soon as he's gone. How do you replace that?
You can't. You can't. I don't know if we've ever really had. Shearer's a bit like that kind of character where everyone would look up to him, and he would be wasted in Turkey at the moment. He's still got a lot to offer. I know he's not physically where he was at, and I wonder if he was thinking about that Chelsea game last season where he gave away the goal at the end and then he missed his penalty in the League Cup in the quarterfinal. But if this was his redemption today, then yeah, he's got to start the final, doesn't he? Really, we've got 5 or 6 games before then, but that's the kind of person you want in your team.
I could see us playing this exact team in the final, to be honest with you. The way that works so well there. I mean, you think about the likes of Spurs, and Liverpool's obviously not the same as Spurs, but Spurs like to run at you and give you loads of space, and they've got a shed load of injuries. Like, they are decimated. Every game they're picking up a new injury, just like us last season. You could see how we could just sit back and go, all right, well, take your best shot. We think you're a bit shit, frankly. I know you've scored lots of goals in the leagues, but, we seem to have your number, just as we do with Arsenal. And then we'll just look to break on the counter, and we've got one of the best strikers in the world right now. So what are you going to do about that? All your defenders are buggered. Good luck to you. If it's Liverpool, you've got Salah to worry about, so it's slightly different. You might want to pack the midfield a little bit more, I'm not sure. But I could see us starting that in the final, I really could.
Well, we'll know in about 12 hours who we've got, and then we can start thinking about that weekend, which is in about 6 weeks now. But yeah, it's going to be. We'll talk about. I want to touch on it a bit later, how we might approach that, and compared to how we approached the last time. But let's talk about the defense as well.
Better, hopefully.
Better, yeah, and hopefully a different result. But the defense. So there was, like I said, there was a lot of defenders on the pitch for us, and part of it was no doubt because of Arsenal's strength and from corners, because that's the thing that they're good at. But they've had 24 corners across these 2 games. They had 13 corners in this game, and they haven't looked like scoring from any of them. And I think that's the thing about having big, strong defenders, that it's nullifying one of their biggest strengths. And I think it's a bit rudimentary for a club with Arsenal's resources and all the talent they've got to be so focused on corners, and we nullified it so well. The first game, blocked, scrappy, tackled, everything, and they had a few chances in that one. This one, we limited them to a few shots and all of those corners, but the defense were just rock solid, weren't they? And there was a block from Dan Burn in the first half, which ended up on the halfway line because somebody kicked it into him and it just went.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
but it's the defensive strength, isn't it, in this game? And that's what there was no way they were going to score. Like, we just said, you're not going to score today, so doesn't matter what you try and do. And it was such a strong defensive performance.
I think Arsenal rely a little bit too much on this, though, these set pieces. Odegaard isn't the same Odegaard as last season as this season. He's had his injuries, obviously, but he's not as deadly as he is as he has been in front of goal. And that miss, it was almost an open goal. It was just sitting there waiting for him to kick it in, and he completely stuffs it. And I do think they rely a little bit too much on these set pieces, and I think that's got a lot to do with when they keep falling over at the slightest touch. You can see they're just thinking, get into this little area, final third sort of thing, just fall over. And the referee, by the way, Jesus Christ, he was given every single thing that, slightest touch, slightest nudge, whistle. And at one point in the first half, I thought this guy's just going to ruin this because he's not letting the game even develop. He's just stopping it every time. But I think the sport won the tactics of Arsenal, for all their bitching on about Newcastle and dark arts and whatnot. They're no better. They're just diving over every time to get a touch so they can get their preferred means of a goal, which is a set piece. I saw a stat, and I don't know if I've got no idea if it's true, but something like Newcastle had faced 180, which is a big number, of set pieces, and only conceded from 1. And I don't know if that's true or not. I can kind of believe it. I don't know if it's true or not.
Sounds about right.
And the one was probably was that not when Cliver, did he score from a set piece? Was it a corner or something? Somebody scored from a corner. Bournemouth.
Yeah.
I mean, they scored like 16 goals.
Forrest scored a header from a corner or free kick or something, which was pretty weak. But yeah.
So that stat might not be exactly right, but we faced a lot of them. So we kind of effectively nullified Arsenal's greatest strength, if you believe all the talk about their set piece masters and all this stuff. And so you've got Botman in there, and who, by the way, was absolutely fantastic as well. You've got Byrne, who, blocked everything, did his slide and tackle. I love it when you're watching on the telly and you can't quite sometimes see who's who. And you see a slide come in, and just the way the slide shapes, you go, that's Dan Byrne.
Yeah.
That's Dan Byrne.
Telescopic.
The way he's hooked his legs around and recovered from a position where he probably hasn't got any right to. That's Dan Byrne. Botman's starting to pick that up as well. Sometimes I think it's Byrne. It's actually Botman. But there's lots of headers in the box and everything. And, you can, there's always been that phrase where, if you start with a strong defense, you can then go on and do your attack. And I think largely it was just down to us having the tools at the back, nullifying any threat that Arsenal had from set pieces. I think they relied too much on it. They got injuries in difficult places. Declan Rice was getting bullied. Partey did nothing. Havertz is an absolute donkey. Martinelli got injured and did nothing anyway. Trossard did nothing except maybe have one chance. And Saliba and all that at the back were just getting bossed all over the place. I don't think they had an answer anywhere on that pitch for what we were doing, not just the defense.
And it wasn't just this game; it was the last game as well, where the defense we've had that base and that strong platform to work from, and then the attackers, which I was going to come and talk about next, they can't do anything with Isak. Like Saliba and Gabriel are probably the best centre back partnership in the league, and they never ever concede any goals. Every time we play them, Isak absolutely has the pants down. They cannot control him. They look like little kids when he's playing. And in this one, Murphy was causing trouble like he has been for most of the season, recently anyway. And Gordon was, like I said, he was a bit narrower. And him and Isak were picking the moments for pressing. And then when they got the ball, we were counter-attacking effectively. And this is what we did against Liverpool, and we've done it against Man City a few times. So it kind of suits us to play against teams like this where there's space in behind. They had two fullbacks that were pushing on and leaving space in behind. But when we're playing well, we punish them. Gordon had the ball quite a lot. Murphy, I felt a bit sorry for him on the weekend because he scored his goal for us on his 200th appearance, and it was sort of overshadowed by the rest of the game, which was terrible. But this time, this finish was a lot harder than he made it look. It came off the post, which would have been a phenomenal goal by Isak, skidded away, and it was going quite quickly towards the touchline. And Murphy, who usually hits the post himself, this did hit the post, it hit the inside of the post and went in. But usually he would just have spooned this or, miscontrolled it or something. But he just managed to sneak it in. But I think that finish was a lot harder than what he made it look. And he deserves all the credit in the world for his recent form. And, he's a Newcastle fan scoring in a semi-final just like Sean Longstaff did last season. How good was that to see? And how impressive you've been with Murphy recently?
I love Murph. He's obviously had his fair share of criticism, but I think he's now starting to really shine in this team. There was an interview with Shearer and Isak. It came out recently on BBC, but I'd heard from the rest of his football with Lineker and whatnot when Shearer was on there, and they were talking about one of the games, and it was Murphy had set up Isak, as he has done several times this season. And Alan was talking to Isak, and he must have been talking about this interview. And Isak was, the way he talked about it, it sounded like Isak was saying, I'm not getting the service. And he said, you've got to get angry. Get in that dressing room, shout at them, say, I need service. And I think Murphy is more than anyone has really picked up on that. If that's how it went, I'm sure it isn't how it went. It sounds a bit dramatic, but he's the one who's kind of almost flag-beared this idea of running down the wing and whipping it in. Gordon is more likely to try and cut in and do something himself. Murphy is more likely to cross it. What I love about this particular goal is that he's fair away from the actual goal when he starts his run. He sees there's an opportunity here. Obviously, the player's developing. He's attacking the goal, and he just gambles really, and he just runs into a space where he's hoping for a bit of luck. And that's all it is at the end of the day. I mean, it was Isak's weaker foot, but Jesus Christ, what a goal that would have been. I mean, his first one was amazing. That one was maybe even better. given that it was his weaker foot and it was slightly to the outside of the goal. And we get a bit of luck with the rebound. And it takes Murphy just a little bit wide, doesn't it? But rather than try and gather it, reset a little bit, take a touch, and then do something, I think he even shins it a little bit. I don't think it hits his foot. I think it hits his shin and goes in off the post. And I think, you can say, yes, he likes hitting the post. By God, does he not? But he deserved that goal because he gambled, he took the run, and he got himself into a position where he was ready to pick up on a scrap. So he deserves that goal. I thought it was a well-taken goal. And, you can see when he's celebrating how much it means to him. He's got his big smile. He's got his arms out like an airplane. And then he kind of like tucks his arm in and he's like, like kind of big surprise, like kid in the park kind of face to all his teammates. I absolutely love it.
He's not far off Miggy levels of purple patchness this season, I would say, as Miggy 2 years ago, because he's got 8 assists this season. I think that's his 4th or 5th goal as well. So it's probably no exaggeration to say that our chances of winning this trophy could rest on the fitness of Jacob Murphy, which if you'd have said that 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, like yeah, exactly, you'd be sent to the funny farm or something, So, but he really is that important, especially because he's the only specialist right winger we've got in the team now as well. But Anthony Gordon, there's a stat here about him. He's got 17 goals or assists in his last 19 games against the Big Six from the start of last season.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that obviously bodes well for the final as well. He was at the club for the last final, but he was cup-tied, so he didn't play, and he wasn't in the team anyway when he first came. But this kind of scene and this sort of setting seems to really suit him. Like he's brilliant in these games. Like he's got so much quality, and maybe it is the fact that there's more space in these games. Like he's got a bit more time to get forward than he does against some other clubs who are doing maybe more of a defensive game. But when he's in the space and when he's in this mood, I still was thinking about his assist for Tonali against Southampton. That beautiful cushioned pass, and the one for Isak's disallowed goal today was similar. He's got creativity. He can score goals. He actually missed maybe an easier chance in this one where he had the open goal and he kind of put it wide.
Yeah.
And if he'd have put faces through that and realized that Ray was actually running as fast as he could towards one side, he might have tried to put it the other side. But yeah, he's popped up with this one. It was a nice finish into the side net, and Fabian Schär pressing on their box, which is like a bit like when he scored against PSG. It's like, what are you doing there? But obviously it was a clear strategy. But yeah, Gordon against these teams, brilliant, isn't it?
I think he's the kind of character likes to be a nuisance to these kind of teams. I think he likes to be the thorn in the side against lesser teams, in quotes. I think he's more of a routine kind of figure where he'll run down the wing, cut back inside maybe a little bit. And when he's got the space he gets against these kind of teams, though, I think he loves just playing on the shoulder and just waiting to get released, and then he legs it, and it gives the fullbacks all kinds of trouble. And then you can sort of do little things. You can get people yellow cards. You can make things. You can do the hooks around the corner like you mentioned there. But I think most of all, he just loves winding up these kind of teams. I think he gets a kick out of it. I get a kick out watching him do it. He's such an asset. I read these fans going on about Isak all the time. And it took them 60 minutes in this game to mention Arsenal and Isak. So fair play. That was 60 minutes longer than I thought it would take. But a few of them actually say, what, we should have signed Gordon when we had the chance as well, because I think they were interested in Gordon and they didn't move on it. And we obviously did. And now they look at that and go, Gordon would walk into our Arsenal team now. Isak would walk into our Arsenal team now. Bruno would. Tonali was excellent today, by the way. He'd walk into their team. And then there's a question marks about the fullbacks with Holland. So, and Botman probably in the middle. There's quality everywhere. And Gordon, he needs to stay fit for the final. Murphy needs to stay fit for the final. Because them two, as much as anyone, really deserve to have a proper go at a chance at winning silverware and putting their name down in history for their efforts and everything they've done this season. I think they've both been absolutely terrific. And long may it continue with when they're on fire, the team is usually on fire as well.
I think Gordon's fitness as well. He wasn't fit at the start of the season, and he'd had a bit of a difficult summer with being away with England and not playing. And then he had that speculation about his future, which turns out was accurate. You know, he was
that was
potentially being touted around.
Yeah.
So it took him a while to get going this season, but even in this game, there was 2 occasions where he was tracking back and defending really well. And it was right at the end of the game. He was still running back, and you could see Howe actually was clapping him for that one, because when he's fit, this is what he does. Like he runs up and down all game, and he's got the quality on the ball as well. And he's just a really humble character. He said at the end, "Stay up." He is. He's like, if you see him on whenever he's interviewed, he speaks really well. Like, it's completely different to what we thought we were getting when we signed him. We thought we were getting this tempestuous, moody kid, but it couldn't be further from the truth. He's very mature, and he's only 23. You know, he's got the world at his feet, and it's an absolute joy to watch him in this team. It's just, and like I said, if he can stay fit for the final, these are the games he thrives in. So let's hope he can. Arsenal. The last thing I want to say about Arsenal, they were fucking rattled in this game. They were so rattled from the beginning. Havertz was rattled, and he always gets rattled against us. But Lewis Skelly at the end was trying to fight nobody, and then Trippier was like in everybody's face. Rice towards the end, he barged someone over, and then he completely scythed Bruno down. He was like absolutely losing his mind.
How do you not get a yellow for that, by the way? It was a horrible tackle, and he just sort of talks the referee out of it. It's like, you're kidding me.
I do think some of this stems from Arteta, who just can't contain his own emotions, and I think this must bleed out into his team a bit. But obviously they were frustrated; they were getting absolutely battered, and Declan Rice, it was absolutely glorious to see somebody get that frustrated. And it wasn't even without their public enemy number 1, Joe Linton, on the pitch as well. Trippier took the Joe Linton role for this game, but there's a theme running through these games against Arsenal where they just don't like it. They don't like getting beat, obviously. That's fine. They're the professional sports people, but they cannot take it, can they? And we bullied them, we hassled them, and they were completely rattled by the end of this game. And it was just beautiful. And there was songs, the crowd was singing songs about Arteta as well, about the ball, claiming the ball. It was just magnificent, wasn't it?
And Party, she said no, and all this kind of stuff. It was terrific. And as I said at the top there, Eddie's got the number. He knows they don't like it up them. The war flags had the get into them T4 flag up at the I don't know if it was the Gallagher or the Leeds end, but everyone, and not just us, everyone who plays Arsenal knows that they're tempestuous. Like, if you rattle them, they kind of just lose their heads a little bit too much and to get too emotional. And it probably does leak down from the top. It probably does come from Arteta. I said in the preview, look, part of this, I'm sure it's not all of it, but part of it is his management style, where he wants to take away all the attention from the players. And he doesn't give that gracious defeat speech. He just picks on something to complain about. Even after this game, he still had to have a slight against us in his post-match, saying, it was a bit of they made it a bit chaosy, and then when they went direct, we couldn't handle it. And I was like, mate, we didn't go direct. What are you on about? Well, the first goal that didn't stand was right through the middle of you, man. It was on the ground. It wasn't going direct over the top or anything. The second one was the same. The goal that did stand, the first one was the same. And the last one, you did that to yourself. What's it going to do with us going, what are you on about direct, man, you lunatic? And you see him shaking Eddie Howe's hand, and his mouth's shut, and he just looks straight through the guy. And it's like, dude, man, can you just be a little bit gracious? This might be your bit, but like, come on, mate. And this probably leaks down into the players, and they've got those kind of players who will just kick off. Havertz, as I say, from the very start, just looked like he was annoyed. I don't know if it's just because he's shit or what, but he didn't do anything in this game of any real note. Every time he got touched, he went down like a sack of crap. He was in it with other people's face like a hard man. Like, dude, man, give it up. You're just shit, man. You get over it. You're not going to get anything from us. You get no change. It might impress you last, but it doesn't impress us. You know what I mean? Trossard, nothing. Rice, was it? I was going to say it was at fault for their second goal, but I mean, Rhea, God, that hospital ball, good Lord. He can see what's coming. I don't know why he doesn't just hoof it. And then the pass to Rice is absolutely terrible as well. So I don't know. It's probably a bit much to blame Rice for that one. But he's meant to be $100 million midfielder, £100 million midfielder. If you're going to do that kind of ball, you'd expect someone of that kind of price tag to be able to handle that ball, wherever it might be, tap it or something, I don't know. And I love it. I love seeing these lot get the shits. And it seems like every time we play them, that's exactly how it goes as well.
And it's worth remembering, Arsenal have not won anything for a long time. Arteta won the FA Cup with them when he first came, but that was a long time ago. So, they strut about and they behave as if they're these sort of serial winners, but they're not. And that's what I was getting at when I was talking about why would Isak necessarily want to go to Arsenal a couple of weeks ago, because we're on a trajectory. They've got more resources than us, and they've got a better squad with more depth, but they can't hack it at St James's Park. There was the one a few years ago, the 2-0 in Eddie's first season, where they were going for the Champions League and we paid to that. There was obviously the ball over the line game. Havertz flying through the air, didn't get sent off. All of everything that went on with that game. And then there was the 0-0 at the Emirates a few years ago, which was where the whole dark arts thing came from. They were so rattled that day, and it's just it's the most satisfying thing just to see a team get so upset when they're coming up against what is really their bogey team. And Eddie has definitely got the number, and he did a tactical job, but also the mentality was spot on for this one. And seeing Havertz just behave like he does, and Declan Rice, he's played some brilliant games at St James's. When he came up with West Ham once, I remember he was strutting about like a peacock. He was absolutely fantastic in that game. But it's something about Arsenal. They just do not like it about St James's Park. So we'll see how it goes in the second last game of this season. Hopefully there's nothing for us to play for. Maybe we might be able to ruin the title ambitions. That'd be nice, just to put the cherry on the cake. But
oh God, we'll never hear the end of that. I will say that Arteta has improved that team. It's been there 5 years, and I think you have to be fair. They were kind of 7th, 8th, 6th, whatever it might have been for a little while. And he came in and it did change around the performances. And now they're like top 2, last season, this season. Probably should have won last season. So he has definitely improved that team. But come up against us, forget about it, mate. You're going home and not.
And, they've been up against a hard Man City team in the league, and, they've got a lot of points that would usually win in the league. But until they do it, they're going to have this concern that they haven't got the mentality for it. And I don't think Arteta helps them. I really don't. And I understand what you were saying, and I think he does try and deflect sometimes, talking about the ball and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
But I think he does try and deflect, sometimes successfully, just by saying ridiculous things. But you want your manager to be a bit calm, maybe, or to be able to back up what he's doing and what he's saying. When you've got your supporters, fan base sending death threats, and I know it's not everybody, obviously, but when you see the way that a lot of the Arsenal fans behave on social media, and again, I know it's social media, but there's definitely something with that club where there's just something a bit different about them, and I don't think Arteta's attitude and the way he behaves actually helps.
No, I think he enables a lot of that. He's enabling it by his own histrionics. If you say loudly enough and long enough that the world's against you and all the referees are corrupt and PJML hates you and everyone wants you to lose, sooner or later other people are going to start saying the same thing and going to start believing you. I understand he wants to have a different narrative when they have a terrible game, especially against us, to deflect all that attention, as we've said. But there's ways of doing that without coming out crying in front of the cameras as I did that one time, without saying this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my career, and mate, the ball wasn't over the line, get over it, man, Christ almighty. You can say things, and Mark was making this point, there are ways and means you can get your message across without being this over emotional teenage girl.
He's like a baby, isn't he? I think my 2-year-old's got more self-control than him.
Well, this is it. But, this is to your point. This enables the fans and probably the players to feel and act in certain ways. Now, obviously, they're own people and they have their own responsibilities, and that's entirely down to them. But you have a cheerleader, people listen, and he is the biggest cheerleader for that club. So he has to take responsibility for the way they sometimes behave.
Absolutely, but yeah, it's a beautiful, glorious sight to see them so upset and so rattled, and let's hope we see plenty more of that in the years to come. Let's think about the final. So this is about 6 weeks away now. We don't know who we're going to play yet. It's going to either be Liverpool or Spurs. We've got 5 games until then, or potentially 6 if we beat Birmingham and get through in the FA Cup. Last time we were in this final against Man United, it was all a massive novelty, obviously, because we hadn't been in a cup final for a couple of decades. The Trafalgar Square thing, everything, the flags, the whole weekend that it was a big occasion for everybody, which, a cup final is a big occasion, but a club of our stature should have been in more cup finals than we have been. And we want to be in a position where we get used to being in these finals. And obviously, until we win one, there's always going to be that monkey on our back. But I wonder if that experience of 2 years ago is going to help us with this one, because, we'll have been in the same changing room before if we're in the same one. We'll have experienced Wembley. It's largely the same team. It's different opposition. Man United were in good form that day, but I don't think we handled the occasion well on the pitch. And I don't think we did ourselves justice that day. It depends who we play, Liverpool or Spurs. There's pros and cons to both. If it's Spurs, it's going to be just pure desperation for both sets of fans, and whoever loses that, I can't think of much worse than losing the cup final to Spurs. I don't even want to think about that, especially living in Australia where Angel would be getting all of the love. God. But Liverpool are a much better team than Spurs, so even though we've caused them trouble, we've never beaten them with Howe. So what do you think we can learn from the last final we played going into this one in terms of everything, the build-up, how we approach it, how we react in the games around it? Hopefully we won't get our goalkeeper sent off and suspended this time. But yeah, looking ahead, how do you think we're going to respond to coming up to this game, considering we've got other important games coming up in the league first as well?
No, absolutely, yeah. There's little doubt that we will benefit from that experience. Actually, Eddie Howe in his post-match said that they'd even benefit from the Champions League games because quick turnaround, short amount of time to do prep, and he directly referenced that in preparation for this game. So even the different competition still gives you lessons you can take into your next important game. God, we were all giddy at Wembley. Let's be honest, we were all giddy. Players were probably giddy. But the prep wasn't perfect, as you say. Pope getting injured or sent off. Well, I can't remember what he did.
He got sent off against Liverpool. Yeah,
was that the way he came out and handled the ball?
Yeah,
like an absolute idiot. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then Dubravka was obviously.
Then Dubravka was cup tied because he did his little, jaunt off to Man United to tick a little box on his CV. The shitbag. I'm not going to go down that road again. So then we had to Karius, who played that one game, which was the final. So that couldn't have been ideal for him. And I think probably he was responsible, at least for the first game. He could have done first goal. He could have done a lot better with. Man United annoyingly got into some form just before that game, but before that they were terrible. There's a number of games in the meantime. I hate the delay. I hated the delay from the first round to the second round. 4 weeks for a second leg game. What the hell is that about? And now it's a little bit more understandable for the final. You got to get Wembley ready and everything else, but like in between two legs, that's madness. But anyway, I think it's obviously the internal workings of the club we can't know too much about. I think, if I'm not mistaken, didn't we go down there to London a bit early and try to bed in and do a little bit of training on the Wembley pitch and stuff like that, rather than like arriving late or something? I might be thinking of a different game, but I think there was some part of the prep that allowed us to do that. But I think more than anything, it was only 2 years ago. We've still got that feeling of what that cup final was like. It's not been another 20 years to the next one. So all the players who were there that day will be able to lean on their experiences from that day, including the pain, and probably even mostly the pain, excuse me, because that's the hurt that they need to really kind of tap into and think, right, that is something I am definitely going to try my best to avoid this time around. I think in general, we're just in better form as well. So if we can continue that over these next few games and take that into the final, that'll be much better for us. But I think, for the likes of the fans, though, we're just going to go mad. So you can't, fans, this is the fans' moment. They can do what the hell they want. I don't give a shit. But I think for the club and for the players, there are many lessons there that they'll learn. Start fast in the game. We were sluggish as shit in that game. I don't know what the hell. It's like we'd almost been out on the piss the night beforehand, and then the game of itself in the final, we were just lumbering around the place. And it wasn't even a good Man United. Yes, they're in a bit of form, but they weren't that good. We didn't even lay a glove on them. So that was annoying. But yes, we'll have Gordon, hopefully. Murphy will be there. Isak's in form. I think Isak hadn't been at the club very long, had he? So he kind of still feeling his feet. So Isak is now well and truly embedded. So we'll be leaning on him a lot. You got Tonali, who's up to speed now. Bruno, who will be desperate for it. And all the rest of that. That it's this time round, it's set up much better than it was last time, just because of that experience and because of the form we're in and what it means to everybody.
And I think Eddie Howe will have learned a lot of lessons as well, because it was his first cup final. So he will have known that we got things wrong in the approach. And I don't care what anybody says, we took our eye. We were very focused on that game, and it affected the form running up to it as well. So we were distracted by that, by the cup run that season. So if they can work out a way of not allowing that to happen, and I think the game against Arsenal is good practice for that, because it was a massive game, that we had coming up, and maybe we were a bit distracted against Fulham. I don't know, but I think the experience of going into a game like this, where there's so much pressure, and coming through it will give us a lot of confidence as well. We've got the games we've got Birmingham in the cup, then we've got Man City away, and then we've got Forest at home, Liverpool away, then we might have another cup game, and then we've got West Ham away. So they're the games before this. So we're still fighting for European spot in the league as well. I think Eddie will be good at putting this to the side now, this cup final, and not thinking about it for a while. But it'll be just really interesting to see what happens and how much this affects us. And maybe it'll depend on who the opposition is as well, on what the build-up's going to be like. But we'll maybe watch that game in the morning with a bit of comfort knowing that we're already there. I just think
absolutely. I think
after what Salah did. Yeah.
Sorry. I don't think it matters who we get in the final. I think we'll be up for this one, and I think we'll be putting in a performance. It might not be enough, but I think it'll be chalk and cheese from the last final. And yeah, as I said, Eddie's already picking up things from the European campaign last season, which didn't go quite as well as we hoped. So he'll be leaning on that. He'll be leaning on the final. We'll be a different animal. We'll be an absolutely different animal in this final. I'm absolutely certain of it. I mean, it maybe isn't the best preparation to do 2 away games, possibly even a third if it's the FA Cup before this. But there again, you could argue, well, if you've done 2 or 3 away games before another away game, what's another one anyway? So maybe it might work in our favour even. You never know.
Let's just hope Jacob Murphy stays fit. That's all that matters.
Well, let's hope that Dubravka doesn't get injured, because he looked like he took a bit of a kick, didn't he?
Yeah.
We haven't seen how Pope is yet, because he hasn't come back. So, there's question marks there. I think.
There is, and there's a lot that happened before then. So for now, let's just let's go and watch the highlights again. Let's jump on the Arsenal message boards. Let's enjoy our Friday tomorrow. It's been an absolute pleasure talking about this. We will be back for a review of the Birmingham game, I'm sure, which I think is on Sunday. It's just like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
3:45 a.m. or something. So I'm sure we'll be back after that. Maybe we'll be in another cup, and progressing another cup as well. But tonight's all about the Carabao Cup. We will speak to you all soon. Take care.
Cheers, guys.